Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there. Shaping up to be a pretty big news day. It is April 4th, 2023, a date that will live in history, is the date that a former president was arrested, read his rights, fingerprinted, and arraigned on numerous felony charges. That happens in a few hours. Here to talk to me about all that and more is my sister, Susan. Hello, Susan. Ha, 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 ha. Ha. She's not here. That's amazing. Remember how she got on me for always acting as if she wasn't going to be there? Shall we listen to what excuse she has? I'm going to quickly text her. I specifically stopped acting like I wasn't sure if she was there. What's she going to say? Who knows? Okay. Anyway, big day, obviously. The other big story is actually where Susan is, which is Wisconsin. A lot of people don't understand how important that one is, but it's important, and that's a Supreme Court election that I talked about yesterday, can determine whether or not democracy will exist in that state, and or whether that state will be stuck in minority rule for generations, perhaps. Just amazing. Well, God, so much to talk about, and yet,
well, talk about it with me.
Okay. Hello.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I said let's hear. Now I got to go back to being tentative when I introduce you.
You know, and I was just sitting here with the phone in my lap.
What were you thinking about? Where was your head?
I was reading.
Okay. All right. All right. So anyway, big day. What are the polls in Wisconsin saying? Everybody seems to be suggesting that the Democrat's going to win.
I'm very hopeful that she's going to win.
Yeah, but we don't know.
We don't know. You just not it is so 50-50 in the state that it actually comes down to
who shows up.
Who shows up. If you don't think your vote counts, this is one of those races where every single vote is going to count. And I think we've got the power to do it. And I think she's clearly the better candidate. I mean, this Kelly guy is the guy that was running all the Trump nonsense lawsuits
about the election.
About the election. So, I mean, he's about, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of anything, he's just qualified himself.
Well, he was quite willing to not only say that the election was rigged, but that Wisconsin's votes should not be counted. I mean, he was willing to set forth false electors, the whole thing. Yeah. He was in for a penny and in for a pound, and I'm sorry, that just is disqualifying. Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, that's what we think, but I'm feeling hopeful too, but only because I was reading something about hope the other day. I don't know if you read that. There was a piece in the Washington Post about hope, and I don't consider myself a particularly hopeful person. I consider myself a pessimistic realist. But they had a little test you could take to see how hopeful, in fact, you are. And I surprised myself by being not totally, I'm on the low end of somebody who does have hope, but low end. And the questions that are asked suggest that where I get hopeful is I do feel that things can be corrected, that people have agency, that I have agency.
agency that I can, so that's where I could see that, that constitutes hope. Well, then maybe I'm not as hopeless as I thought. But then there's another thing about hope is that it also requires agency, that you have to act, you have to be willing to act, the will to then do the thing that you feel might move things forward. And that's where I fall down. My will is weak and always has been. But it suggests that you can, those are muscles that you can work on. So anyway, it was an interesting article about that we can't live without it, that without hope, it's over. You have to believe.
Yeah, I think I'm constitutionally incapable of doing anything else. I'm sort of an opposite personality towards yours. So, I have a hard time maintaining unhappiness or anger, which frequently gets in my way because those are propelling sort of emotions. And I just, end up getting happy again. So it creates a problem.
It's a good default to have.
That makes me by nature a more hopeful person, that things are going to get better, that, they do, they can, they will.
Yeah. Yeah. In the long view, whatever. Anyway, hopefully. I don't know. It's not a static thing. Hope is like, your sense of hopefulness or hope can change.
Wax and wane, yes.
Yes, but they say journalists especially need to hang on to hope, because what we consider news is all the negative stuff, and it's very hard to maintain hope when you're mired always in looking at the worst of us. I suppose it's like anyone who deals with police, first responders, all tragedy and people behaving badly and that kind of thing. It's hard. It's hard.
I think it's a little weirder than that, Ninu. Lynn, I think that that people now, because the world isn't even as bad as they want it to be, make up lies to make it worse.
Well, that's true.
So, that's what QAnon does. They say that people who are perfectly alive are dead. They say that vaccines that are designed to cure you will instead kill you. They say that a terrible, mugging in Washington, D.C. is actually even more horrific, and just lie. And they lie to create anger and hopelessness, and they do it to motivate.
To motivate to do what? To motivate to do what?
Motivate, I think, people with 3 brain cells to create violence.
Or to look for a savior.
Or to look for a savior, but most of them want violence on the way to the savior. That's their fun.
I don't know. I just don't know. We're gonna see. Did you happen to, by the way, see? I rarely watch 60 Minutes anymore, but I did watch the Marjorie Taylor Greene interview. Okay, I was stunned. I really was. I was just stunned. I know there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of howling, as is the case, why it exists, it seems, in social media, about Lesley Stahl letting her spew this insanity that Joe Biden's a pedophile, that Democrats are pedophiles.
She pushed back.
No, she didn't. She said, "How can you say that?" And then Greene goes into this thing about how, well, They allow, I mean, I actually, I should get the direct quote. It's unbelievable. She said something so extraordinary.
She conflating trans medical medical care
to sexualizing children.
Sexualizing children, which turns into grooming, which makes us pedophiles.
Okay.
That was the logic.
There's a good piece, I think, by Greg Sargent in the Washington Post today about how that is that's something that the right wing understands, and is the fact that you keep hearing grooming, trans. This is all part of hearkening back to what used to be gays are pedophiles. That doesn't go as well anymore. So now it's you just conflate all this stuff. And so that you can get to the point where the Democrats are a party of pedophiles. And people are going berserk because...
The common denominator is hate.
Yeah, but Leslie Stahl's reaction to Greene saying that literally was, wow. And then she went on. And people were howling all over America. Wow is what you say? Wow? You don't come back
we are not.
at her. No, not we are not. Explain the speciousness of her, of what she is saying. And Stahl just like threw her hands up and said, wow, as if we, of course, we all know this is not so wow.
Well, and not to even mention the last several high-profile arrests for pedophilia and grooming and all that sort of stuff were of Republican legislators.
Well, right. But Susan, again, facts don't. Speaking of, yesterday, talking about the fact that, data from all the states show that the life expectancy in states run by Democrats is pretty damn far ahead.
It's significantly
what it
higher.
said was, what it essentially says, if you live in a state controlled by Republicans, you're going to die earlier. You're not going to live as long. Well, Paul Krugman picked up on that because and he suggests what one of our callers yesterday suggested best. This is the kind of thing the Democrats need to talk about, and this is actually true. Republicans kill people by their policies or lack thereof. And we've got the data to show it. And I guess what? We think that's an outrage. Well, that's going a little too far. No, it isn't. That's fact. That's fact. And yet, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican on the national stage with growing power, gets to say Democrats are pedophiles. And the interviewer says, wow. Okay. So we get to talk truth. And Krugman trots out more truth. There's been studies done because, people are wondering, why is this that in red states people don't live as long? Is it because red states tend to be poorer and tend to have a less educated population?
And tend to throw people off of Medicare rolls
but they wanted to first look at those things. They wanted to first look at those things. Is it just a matter of money? Rich people have access, can take care of themselves. There's more of them in blue states, blah, 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 blah. They looked at all of that and said it's just a small fraction of what has created this mortality gap. And the more it's looked into, the more it's what you were adding on there. It's policy or lack thereof. That Republican legislatures are actively creating policy that kills people.
Most notably women, by the way.
Poor people, most notably. And
women. If you look at how women fare among poor people, it's worse. And if you suddenly take away some, the health care that's attributable to women's reproductive organs, then you are, by policy, sentencing a large group of women to either death or debilitating illness and then death. And that is by policy. And that is Republicans' policy. So every time you see somebody cry about an unborn baby, you look at them and say, well, why don't you care about the woman that you'll let die while she's carrying a baby that can't live?
So
they kill people. They're murderers, and I've had it.
So Democrats, they say, are pedophiles. Republicans, we say, are murderers. It's policy. It might go. Okay, fine. But here, this is relatively this gap between where you live, that geography determines life expectancy. This is relatively recent because they point out that a red state like Ohio, before it got totally red, and a blue state like New York had pretty much the same life expectancy in 1990. Today, you live in Ohio, the average is you will live 4 years less, 4 years, than if you lived in New York. And that is as the life expectancy went down in Ohio and up in New York because of policies of these two parties. And so Krugman says America's death trip is really largely political rather than economic. And one way you can look at it is compare it to European nations. European nations whose economies have not performed anywhere near as well as ours. So if it's economic, you'd expect their life expectancy to be going down. It isn't. It's going up.
Well, we have to discuss that little thing that we're leaving out of this whole thing, like gun deaths. And gun deaths being the leading cause of death among young people. What's the difference between Europe and the United States?
Here's the other thing. Some of the poorest states, as we know, have refused to expand Medicaid, which gives health insurance to people who couldn't otherwise afford it.
They refuse to take free money to give to people for health care.
It's not that they've got to foot the bill. The federal government is saying, we will give you this money. And they say no. And their people are dying. And the news today is that starting Saturday, officials in a number of these wonderful states can start throwing people off of Medicaid who only have enjoyed it because of special legislation passed during the pandemic, which now is lapsing.
No, I mean, look at what our country does, Lynn. We got all these data in the last 3 years. So we know that we raised up millions of children out of poverty and out of food insecurity in the last 3 years. And what is the Republican reaction? Throw them back into poverty. Let them starve again. We don't care if it works. Take the money away.
Yep, that is correct. Medicaid and CHIP, the Children's Health Program, during the pandemic ballooned by about 25 million. And it covered, during the pandemic, about 90 million Americans. And these states are going to start throwing people off, even when they could. it's sort of mind-blowing. And it says right here, front page, New York Times, nearly half of those who will lose coverage will be Black or Hispanic, according to federal projections. I
better vote.
I repeat it ad nauseum, but we are a cruel nation. Actually, Republicans are a cruel party. We can add a number of other adjectives like Christo, fascist, nationalist, racist, homophobic, but
anti-Semitic.
Ultimately cruel. Now, Susan, just because you brought up the, women, I want to point out that there is a case in Texas, because for some reason, and I don't understand it, you can shop around for courts that, have judges that whose politics are well known. And so this judge, whatever his name is, O'Connor, has Reed O'Connor. Now, I assumed that Reed O'Connor had been put on the bench by Trump in his court packing success. But Judge Reed O'Connor is a Bush appointee. Yeah. He ruled 5 years ago that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was unconstitutional. He's the judge who did that. And that meant that all over the country, people who had it all of a sudden didn't. It was such a momentous decision that the Supreme Court immediately took it up. And unbelievably, that was too much even for them. They upheld the law. But he's now decided that Obamacare's preventive services mandate that you have to cover things that can, proactive care, testing for diseases, for HIV, for, children's anxiety, all this kind of stuff, that has to be covered. He has decided that is unconstitutional. And that means that insurers no longer have to provide free coverage for any care that there's something called the Preventive Services Task Force has recommended since 2010.
Yeah, well, that might save some lives,
Yeah, well, that's true. And his ruling took effect immediately, and again, applies nationwide. It affects dozens of potentially life-saving preventive health care measures. So this, while we now know that Obamacare is incredibly successful and popular in this country. And Republicans are getting queasy because they realize that the abortion thing they were working toward forever, now that they won it, turned out to be a political liability to them. Getting rid of people's health insurance, I think, is going to have the same effect. So they're so good at killing things, and maybe they're good at killing their own party. I hope that that's true. But this will end up, again, in front of the Supreme Court. It is mind-blowing to me that one judge sitting, a totally political judge sitting in Texas can, by fiat, decide, how is that possible? There's something wrong with that. I guess it wouldn't be wrong with it if I agreed with the ruling, I suppose. Oh God.
Yeah, it's and then I mean, did you watch any of the women's basketball?
Oh my God, I loved it.
Was that incredible or what? And now,
and I have to tell you, I watched the men's. I watched the men's too, and I have to tell you, I thought the women.
It wasn't as good.
The women's is more fun. They're higher score. It's at least the ones I was watching. They're higher scoring. They play every bit as well. I know that this Caitlin Connor and her 3-pointers from the next city,
Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, the people are saying. I mean, there was one NBA commentator was saying, I don't know many guys who would ever attempt these throws she does. So yeah, pretty amazing. And then the Tempest in the Teapot that one black player did something taunted, and that's all.
One black player makes a not even a bad motion. She did a motion over her eyes that John Cena originated, which is I don't see you, and then pointed to her ring finger to say I'm going to be a champion. Oh my God, how classless, how rude. Oh my goodness. I mean, men never do anything like that on the court. Men never, put in an elbow.
It's not, Susan. I don't think it's not. It's not just because it's women. It's a racial. It is. She's black. She's black. The woman she was taunting is the white savior, Caitlin Collins, who does the same thing all the time. And as a matter of fact, somebody pointed out, ESPN was all over this and doing the, that's an outrage, shouldn't have done it, takes away from, blah, blah, blah. And somebody unearthed this package that they had put together showing Caitlin Collins, the white phenom, doing it constantly, and how her teammates do it now too, and it was a positive story about, and a positive story. And I guess it was a white woman, and it wasn't considered taunting. I don't know what the hell. I'm so sick of it. Even last night during the men's game,
it's so obvious.
It came up, and Charles Barkley and some other black commentators sort of joined in the jumping on her as well. It did detract from blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, up yours. Just up yours.
So it's a combination of things.
What would I prefer?
It's misogyny and racism. But it's also
here's what
misogyny.
I would prefer. Here's what I would prefer. I don't like taunting. I think I remember, I mean, back in the day.
Yeah, make it a foul.
When let's say somebody got a touchdown, they dropped the ball and trotted back. Nobody went into like celebrate. They just, and I forget which coach said it. Maybe it was Lombardi. He said, "Don't make a big deal. Act like you've been there before. You don't freak out. Just do your job." But that obviously has doesn't resonate anymore. Listen to this. Since we're in for some, with Trump later and all this, we're in for. I'm not so concerned about the arraignment. I'm concerned about his little speech tonight.
Oh God.
Yeah,
they keep calling it as prime time, like they're going to cover it. They better not cover it.
Well, they will. Are you kidding? You think it won't be covered?
Well, I mean, I'm as in cut away and put it on every network kind of cover.
Well, I don't think the broadcast networks will, but I don't know. Susan, I mean, because it's historic, and somebody. A guy with the name Bubba Brown posted a quote on the internet that I recall at the time being just enraged by, but it's worth noting it again in this regard. It's a quote from Les Moonves, who at the time was the head of CBS. He is now, I think, just yet another disgraced CEO, right? He was sexual harassment, blah, blah, blah. I think he's no longer there. And he was responding to the question of why, this is in 2016, why are the networks giving this Trump all of this free, I mean, just wall-to-wall, constant publicity? He moves a finger and you break away. He's all over the place. Well, the same was not being done for Hillary Clinton, the other candidate, right? And Les Moonves said this: it may not be good for America, but it's damn good for CBS. Man, who would have expected the ride we're all having right now? The money's rolling in, and this is fun. I've never seen anything like this. And this is going to be a very good year for us. Sorry, it's a terrible thing to say, but bring it on, Donald. Keep going. There it is. Isn't that the most, it might not be good for America, but it's good for us.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind when you wonder, will the networks cover Trump again? Because now
he's just
the center
the number
of
one
attention
grifter
again.
Just, there's going to put his, I don't think there's going to be a mugshot, but he wants one so we can put it on a T-shirt and sell it.
No, I don't think he wants one. I don't think he wants one. I think he must be scared shitless.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm extremely happy thinking of how miserable he actually is and how his belly probably feels right now and how anxious and unhappy and miserable he is. I don't know, here's a word I really hate, but it fits the situation. I am reveling in his discomfort.
Melania has moved into another part of Mar-a-Lago. She's barely speaking to him, although she'll show up for, events where she's supposed to be. So his marriage is, busted. His daughter is trying to somehow remove herself from him as well, while the sons continue to rage, for their father.
Well, the sons are so stupid that they don't even know it's time to try and start saving themselves. And Ivanka, at least, is trying to save herself. I don't know that she's trying to save her marriage, but she's trying to save herself. And Jared is definitely trying to protect that $2 billion that he talked out of the Saudis.
Not just the Saudis. The more and more stuff's coming out about the money he has pulled, the millions he got out of the Middle East.
He's sitting there supposedly doing the country's
Hunter
business.
Biden's penis, Hunter Biden's laptop requires, Justice Department and congressional investigation because he's the son of the president. What about the son-in-law of the president? Literally.
With a $2 billion thing that we can all see. I mean,
yes, the grifter-in-law. What a perfect
grifter-in-law. Who's also, absolutely. And he's got his own grifter for a father. I mean, no wonder he and Donnie get along so well. They're disgusting,
they're criminals.
Classless, awful, criminal human beings.
Hey, here's some good news. Ye, the artist known as Kanye West.
It would be Ye.
He says that after rewatching Jonah Hill's performance in the action comedy 21 Jump Street, Ye said, he made me like Jewish people again.
God. I mean,
so what's with a culture that elevates this level of stupidity? Inanity. Well, you need an answer. Here's something
Gay is a total genius, or he was until his manic depression turned him into a totally awful person, which, is really a stupid thing to say because there's plenty of manic depressives that aren't Kanye West. An asshole is an asshole, and it's totally separate from their diseases.
The magazine The Week has these little nuggets, and I'm going to give you 2 more. Did you see what the TSA has done in terms of what you can bring on the plane?
Well,
they're at it again.
Now what?
Peanut butter. Do you know why? I assume it was allergies again. Peanuts.
Yeah.
That's not it. No, that's not it.
It makes too big a mess.
They have classified peanut butter as a liquid. And so you can bring up to 4 ounces of it? That's it.
Yeah.
Well, how is peanut butter
isn't
a liquid? You don't pour yourself a peanut butter sandwich.
You can't even get it off the knife. You can't. You got to lick it. You got to give it to your dog to get the end of it out of the container. No, but if you buy all natural peanut butter, it does tend to separate the oil from the solids.
Oh, I hate that stuff. Someone once, I can't remember why I couldn't go shopping, some other surgery, some other invalidism that I was suffering, and I asked for some peanut butter, and God, somebody brought me some friggin' peanut butter from Trader Joe's, and it was. I said, "What? This is peanut butter?" It was like this disgusting. I mean, so what is it that holds it together in like Skippy and Jif? Is it some bad thing?
Sure. I mean, something that once they emulsify it and make it all one keeps it that way, which it actually naturally wouldn't do. It would separate. So there's some chemical in there.
Did I hear someone say we have a call? Oh, okay. I did. It was a vague, I didn't know if I dreamt it or not. We have a call. Hello?
Hello, Lynn?
Hello?
Susan?
Yeah.
Hello. Hey, John from Greensburg, though I haven't lived in Greensburg for some time, but good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Hi.
Any day Trump is under indictment is a good morning for me. I suspect we'll have many good mornings in that regard because I think charges will be coming out of Georgia and coming from the special counsel, probably also from the SEC against his business, but maybe also against him personally. But I really want to talk about the special counsel and how their investigation seems to have uncovered that he was going through the boxes of classified materials and other government materials that he took home and pulling certain files that he thought might be useful to him in the future for financial recompense. Because he
things that he could
confessed.
sell to, yeah.
Yeah, he basically confessed when he was on the Sean Hannity show. I don't know if you've seen the excerpt, but Hannity was saying, was of course, giving him softballs and trying to guide him along, shepherd him along. I don't imagine you'd ever, knowingly take home, government documents that you weren't supposed to have, and you'd never look at those. You'd never do anything improper. And of course, Trump being a narcissistic idiot, just who thinks that every utterance of his is brilliant, started talking about how he would do that because there was nothing wrong with that. He had every right to do that. And how it was just so horribly unfair that the FBI raided his home because, and this is the kicker, this is the kicker, and this is something I never knew about. He talked about how Richard Nixon was paid $18 million to turn back over documents that he had taken from the White House after his presidency.
What?
Yes, this is true.
What?
This is true.
What?
This is true.
It's true? What?
It is true.
What?
It is true. Richard Nixon, the government reached a settlement with him to pay him $18 million to turn over documents that he had taken. Now, Trump said, they didn't have to raid my home. They could have reached a settlement with me. He took those documents after he learned somehow, somewhere, somewhen, that Nixon was paid $18 million. He figured that's in $1974 or $75. He figured, he's going to turn a nice profit because Trump always needs money because I believe he's actually broke and in the hole for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, and extortion is very expensive to defend.
There were actually federal laws passed after that to prevent that, to prevent a crooked ex-president from holding the government hostage. I couldn't believe it myself, but I checked it out. Yes, Richard Nixon's lawyers were litigating that, that the ex-president had the right to take those documents. They weren't turning them over. The government said, look, fine, we'll settle with you, we'll pay you. That's what Trump wanted. That's why Trump took the documents.
Yeah, sure.
That's why he was looking through the documents.
It's not surprising to learn that his impetus was to make some money on the side. That's the whole idea of being president.
Yeah,
was not because he wanted to be president. It's the position would allow him to grift as he's never grifted before. And man, he and his extended family they went nuts, like, just kids in a candy store. Yeah. So he's going, Jared not only got money from the Saudis, he not only cut deals with the Saudis while he was a presidential advisor, he extorted the Qataris as well. Yes.
That's who saved his ass from having to go bankrupt on that white elephant of a skyscraper he has in Manhattan.
Yeah. I hope he gets his. I hope they come for him. My God, I can't. It's just repulsive. By the way,
the media has learned nothing from 2016. Look at the interview, the 60 Minutes interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Well, that's what we did. That's exactly right. They're just going to keep giving these people a podium to spread their lies and to spread their hate. And they'll say in their defense when you say, why would you allow that woman to say the things she says to the huge audience you have? And they will say, well, she's an extremely important member on the national stage, and that's what she does is news. They've learned nothing. Nothing.
May I say one more thing? Just one last thing.
But okay.
This targeting of the trans community by the Republican Party is not they can't be allowed to get away with it, but this is not a sign of their strength. They are pathetic weaklings. They are cowardly. They are targeting one of the tiniest, most vulnerable, most powerless groups in the United States. They'd really like to go after gay and lesbian people, of course, but they know they don't have the strength or numbers to do that anymore. They are cowards.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
My father always said only a punk and a coward picks fights that they know they'll inevitably win. That's what they're doing here. They're punks and cowards.
And on that absolute statement of fact, I say thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye. You want to hear something really disgusting? the United Nations, the Security Council. They rotate who's in charge of it.
Yeah.
Guess who's in charge of the international council that has been that is there to maintain peace and security around the world? Guess who's running?
Oh, Russia?
Russia, a nation that has started the biggest land war since World War II in Europe, is now sitting at the head of the United Nations Security Council, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, Susan, I got a few other things, some of which might make some of our listeners queasy. I'm saying that is a trigger warning.
If you're eating breakfast, you might want to turn down the sound. Okay.
Well, there's a number of things I could do. The one that's really disgusting. Should I start with the one that's really disgusting or build up?
Sure. No, let's start at the top of it. Yeah.
Okay. Did you happen to read in, I think it was the Sunday Times, the style section? There was a story about a woman, the whole thing, I told myself, just stop reading. It was just boiling my blood. A woman, this is considered, anyway, she has these elaborate dinners in which you have to be naked. And it's all women. And there's pictures from it, tasteful pictures, all of these naked women.
I just saw the picture of the naked woman's arm, brushing against, sitting way too close to the woman next to her. And I didn't read the article. I thought, not for me.
Well, they're all sitting. They're crammed along. They're cheek to jowl in more ways.
Yeah, they got 14 women at a 10-person table.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So I'm reading this and thinking, what the heck? And I read these things just to annoy myself. But then they're talking about how much they all loved it and what they were talking about, and they were talking basically just getting comfortable with our bodies. All this stuff about bodies and stuff. And then I read this. Women were prompted to share a word that summarized their relationship with their periods. And I'm going to skip over this one part and get to this. Two women discussed. I'm disgusted by this, but it's disgust. Two women discussed finger painting with their menstrual blood. And a few others. Yes. Two women discussed finger painting with their menstrual blood, and a few others said they would like to try that.
Okay, this is just ridiculous. I mean, you can be comfortable with your body and not play with what comes out of it. That's what a 2-year-old does.
Do you friggin' believe it? What?
We're old.
And this, no, we're not old. They're fucking nuts. We're old and they're fucking nuts.
The whole idea is nutty. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. I need my clothes for various reasons, not the least of which is pockets, because something is always running and I need Kleenex. I mean, who's sitting on the chairs after all those naked butts are on the chairs? And does any of those women, after having several children and good laugh at the table, leave a puddle in their chair?
All right, Susan, no need to get totally.
Well, no, I mean, let's just discuss all the reasons why you wouldn't want to do that.
Okay, so I just had to share it ruined my Sunday. I mean, I read that and like when.
See, I skipped right over that article because I knew it was going to ruin my Sunday.
Oh, you couldn't. You couldn't. And that was at the end. I'd actually read the whole thing and got to, oh, yes, you mean you don't finger paint with your menstrual blood? Oh, well, let's have a party and we'll all finger paint with our menstrual blood. Jeez, God. Okay. So.
Okay, that was pretty disgusting, Lynn. I got to hand it to you.
Okay. Here's one that's not like disgusting like that, but it's, again, just, we're old, right? This is out of Australia. Somewhere in Australia, who the hell knows, somebody has put up a virtual reality installation that gives the users a simulated experience of dying of cardiac arrest and floating out of their bodies.
Oh, fun.
Do you effing believe it?
Well, for those of us that want to practice dying, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And it's, and maybe you can be like finger painting with your menstrual blood and then suffer this cardiac arrest and go out of your body with your menstrual blood. And it does say here that if the simulation gets too intense, there is staff on hand to pull you out.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Hey,
I don't know. All you have to do is turn on the news and you can have a simulated heart attack anytime you want. I don't know why you have to do that.
Yeah. So I don't have anything to add to this. I'm just saying to the audience here that our former mayor, Bill Peduto, was involved in a bit of a fracas at a bar in Shadyside. Just saying.
Fisticuffs?
Now my sense is that he was the victim. He was sitting at his favorite watering hole. It's been his favorite watering hole forever, Cappy's, right there on Walnut Street. And I guess this was Saturday night. And two men approached him and started, yelling at him, berating him, whatever. Two jerks. The former mayor, apparently, who doesn't strike me as a guy who would engage in fisticuffs or even any physical kind of thing. He pushed one of them. They're on him, and I guess he pushed them away. And then that guy knocks him, the mayor, off his bar stool and gets on top of him, and the bartender is throwing him off. And I don't know. This is all I know because I don't, whatever. There's a newspaper strike, so what do I know? I just get this on social media. The police were called, and nobody wanted to press charges, but it was noted in the police report that the mayor was slurring his words and, appeared to be drunk. I suspect the other guys were probably drunk as well. But it is so unlike the sense one has of Bill Peduto that it's really mind-blowing. I can't even... If you had said to me, Bill Peduto will be involved in a bar fight, visibly, I would say, what? But I don't think he instigated it. If anybody has any more information on this, I would love to hear it. And another local thing, and it's in a lot of cities, we have these scooters, electric scooters that you can just pick up.
I hate those things.
Thank you. Spoken like an old person.
No, because I dropped them off in one person lashed it to my garden gate. Like,
yeah.
No.
Lashed it? No, because you don't have to secure it. You just drop them wherever, when you use it, you dump it.
Well, it was leaning against my gate.
Okay, okay, well, that's not lashed. But you're right. I have them on my street all the time. It is a rare day that there is not one of these things. Now, there is a way where they have a kickstand where you can properly, leave them, but that is rarely the case. They're just dumped. And people feel very strongly about them. There is no doubt about it. So the French in Paris, the Parisian.
Yeah.
A
few times I'm on their side. Yeah.
That's what made me think of it, because it was the mayor. Their mayor hates them too, and they had a 5-year experiment where they allowed all these companies to come in and put out their rental scooters and see how that went. And they decided to hold a referendum on whether or not they should be allowed to stay. And overwhelming, it was something like almost 90% of those who voted said, get them out of here. So they will be gone. They are going away in Paris. It doesn't mean you can't have your own. Because if it's your own,
but if you have, you take care of it. No.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's because people on them do not follow the rules. They're on the sidewalks. They're a hazard, as well as littering all over the place. And I don't know. I don't feel as strongly as a lot of people do about them, but I do want to say that the Parisians are, and this is a growing economy. So there's a lot of businesses that are going to go belly up if this spreads. And I don't know. It's considered a more eco-friendly. It's also for people who can't afford a car, maybe. So, but I have not noticed a lot of poor people on these. I mean, what do I know if somebody's poor or not? But where I see a plethora of them are in wealthier neighborhoods. And kids who look to be too young to be riding them. There's got to be an age, right? And I don't know what the age is here, but I see kids definitely younger than that on these things, and nobody is policing it. In France, 24 people were killed in 21 riding one of these things. So people are getting mowed down on them too. I don't think there's been a death here, but I'm just saying it's. The Parisians got rid of them.
Well, I've been known to take them away from my front door and throw them in the street.
Well, don't throw them in the street.
Well, no, I mean off the curb, and we're in between parked cars. I've had it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got.
I mean, not to damage a car. Well, I put it in the street. I don't want it in my garden or leaning against my fence or obstructing my sidewalk. Any of that. Life in the city is bad enough. Don't make it worse.
Boo! I like life in the city. Hey, speaking of cities, your city is electing a mayor today.
Yes, it is.
All right. So who's supposed to win that one? Nobody knows, right?
Nobody knows. And and I mean, I have I know who I want to win, and my guess is he will win. But it's
is it the teacher guy or the
teacher?
Guy?
It's the teacher guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, the other guy is. I mean, if you're in Chicago, then one of the ways that if they want to kill you, they run a tape where you describe yourself as basically a Republican, which is what Ballas did. And you know, he's got every dog whistle in all of his campaign ads.
Yeah. Well, he's a law and order guy. Yeah.
He's a law and order guy, and the way he's who they brought in to fix the Chicago public schools, and everybody hated him. But he was thrown out of that job. I don't know. I think it'll be Brandon Johnson, but you don't know.
We'll see. We'll see about Wisconsin. Boy, tomorrow we'll know a lot of stuff tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff going on today, and mostly my show's done. So I'm gonna get out, and I got a few hours to kill before where the son of a bitch gets fingerprinted.
I know. When does that happen? 1 o'clock Eastern?
No, I think it's more like 2. Well, yeah. No, I think it's 2-ish Eastern.
Oh, good.
1-ish your time.
Yeah, right. That's good. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you very much.
I apologize for getting caught up in the article I was reading. Losing track of time. Okay.
I understand. Okay.
All right. It happens.
All right.
I'm old. Okay.
It happens. Bye.
Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.